graduated! Now what? A lot of times in our lives, it can be scary and confusing and overwhelming, and we don't know what to do, like what our next step is. And usually the go-to verse for, people who are confused or you don't know what's going on, what you're going to do next is Jeremiah 29:11. But
life isn't all hunky-dory like Jeremiah 29:11 paints it out to be. It's a great verse. It says...
It's my favorite verse.
It says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, to give you hope in the future." That He doesn't want to harm us. But we don't really talk about what it's sandwiched in between. That in Jeremiah 29:10, God tells the Israelites that He's going to send them into exile in Babylon. And that really doesn't sound like plans to prosper you. That the people in Babylon did not like the Israelites. They were constantly at war. They would have been hated in this country, in this foreign land. So it's like, what's up, God? Like, what are you talking about? And I know in my own life, I feel like that a lot. Like, okay, God, you say you love me, you say you care for me, and you have all these great plans, so why does bad crap keep on happening?
Like, what's going on?
Yeah. And,
let me in.
And, there's kind of some insight that I think that right after Jeremiah 29:11 and Jeremiah 29:12, God says that then you will seek me with all your heart, and you'll find me if you seek me with all your heart. And we as humans don't like to seek God with all of our heart, just because that I know with me and with her, and speak for you, that Jeremiah 29:11 would sound even better if it was, "For I know the plans that I have for me, declares me." That if I just got to do what I wanted to do all the time, if I wanted to be what I wanted to be, do what I wanted to do, then life would be great.
That'd be great.
But it wouldn't be. And that we have to learn to let go and trust God, that He knows what He's doing. That there's a verse in Isaiah that says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways are not like your ways. For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so are my ways higher, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts." And what God's saying there is that we're humans. We don't understand what all's going on. God sees everything. He knows what we're going to think, what we're going to do before we think it, before we do it. We just got to let go. The world tells us to follow our heart, and that can be very detrimental. That can lead to our destruction. That in Jeremiah 17, he says the heart is deceitful above all, and that it's sick. That our hearts are sick. They need a doctor. They need to be fixed. We don't follow after a sick thing. Why would we follow after something that's deceitful, that's going to deceive us and lead us to do something that we don't want to do? But there's comfort there because God is in control. That at the beginning of Jeremiah, when God calls Jeremiah was called very young, so it would have been very scary for him that he's maybe not even being in his 20s, and that God is calling him to be a prophet to the nation of Israel. And he says that before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. I consecrated you to be a prophet. I set you apart to be a prophet to the nations. And what God is saying is that we're all made with a purpose. He has a plan for our life. He has a good plan, a plan to prosper us, to give us hope in the future. That it's just up to us to submit to that and let go. That whenever we follow God first, when we follow Christ above anything else, when chasing after God's heart is our number one priority, everything else will fall in place. And also a comforting and not so comforting thing is that whenever we don't, He gives us wake-up calls. And through His grace allows us to get back on the right path.
Yeah, like for me in my life, growing up, I loved basketball. Basketball was pretty much my life. Did summer league all the time. It was just all about basketball. And in 7th and 8th grade, I don't really remember which one, I hurt my shoulder, and I had to have surgery. It was a pretty extensive surgery, and it put me out for several months. And it was really discouraging, and because I had always thought, I'm going to play basketball in high school. It's gonna be so much fun. This is what God wants me to do. And it wasn't. It was just a big hit to me. I didn't really know what to do, and I struggled with that. But I still wanted to do what I wanted to do, and I thought, okay, I'll do rehab and therapy, and then freshman year turns around, and I'll play. I'll play, and I'll have a great time. And that wasn't God's plan. 6 months after my first surgery, I had my second surgery because it fell apart, and that was just another like a wake up call. Like God was telling me that, hey, I don't want you to play basketball. That's not my plan for you. I may have thought that was my plan, and I wasn't listening.
And it might not necessarily just be because it's not like he's gonna be. I don't want you to play basketball just cause.
No.
It's not. He's not making like a power move. That he truly wants what's best for you. That in Romans 8:28 he says that Paul says that we know all things work together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to His purpose. That God works all things, the good, the bad, and the ugly, for our good, and through that grace that He's opened new opportunities.
Yeah, like if I would have played basketball instead of pursuing music and the things that I love to do now,
and she's a great singer.
Thank you, but I wouldn't have those opportunities. I never would have discovered my love for music if basketball was still my focus in life. And I'm an extremely competitive person. I love competitive sports, and so the 2 surgeries, yeah, that was a pretty big wake-up call, but I still wanted to do competitive sports, and so I was like, hey, I'll run cross-country. That's something I can still do. And God's plan was not for me to play competitive sports. I ended up hurting my knee, and I couldn't run, and that was, like the third time's the charm, third wake-up call, and I finally stopped and was like, Jillian, you need to listen to God. God has better plans for you that don't involve basketball and competitive sports and everything. You just need to focus on what He's telling you. You need to listen. And when I finally did, He opened up a world of opportunities for me. Honestly, we've talked about this before. I don't think that we would be dating if we both played basketball, because we were both pretty competitive people. But submitting to His plan and realizing that His way was the best, that I don't know everything, I don't have control of my life, that was one of the hardest things for me to do, because I love to have everything planned out. He can speak for me. I am a very planned, organized person, and when something happens, I'm just like, whoa, no, that wasn't in my plan. And so those 3 things, it was a big wake-up call for me. But I think, it's all how you look at it. It's a positive thing. And God really does know best. It may not be what I want, but I know that all things work for His good and His glory. And so, wait, is that right?
Our good.
Darn it!
No, that's all right. And like you said, that's the hardest thing that we learn to do as humans, because it's human nature to want to be in control, and it's so hard to let go and let God be God. And right now, what we're struggling with, what we want to encourage you guys to do, is that sometimes the best thing is to just let go. Let God be God, and don't try to be in control, because we're imperfect people. Why on earth would we want to be in control whenever a perfect God is longing to be in control? A God who loves you and wants what's best for you just wants you to let go and let Him be God. And so we want to encourage each other and you guys to don't follow your heart. Follow God, because when we follow God, then all those other little things that we get so wrapped up in take care of themselves. And when we follow God, we realize that, hey, there's more to life than basketball. And that's something that I struggle with more than she does or did. And I get so wrapped up in letting basketball define me. And if I have a good game, then I'm a great person. If I have a bad game, I just suck at life. And yeah. But what God says about us is what defines us. That when we follow Him, when we pursue after Him with all of our heart, He promises that we're going to find Him, and that when we find Him, we find His will for our life, and that is comforting. That there is comfort in those uncomfortable verses that are wrapped around Jeremiah 29:11. And I don't necessarily know if it's that it's uncomfortable. It's just that it's not really what we want to hear. That bad things, nowhere in the Bible does it say bad things are going to happen. What it says is that He's going to work those things for our good, for His glory and our good. And that we just have to let go, let God be God. And
it's one of the hardest things to do.
It is.
I mean, submitting, being open and having faith and trusting Him with every part of your life, that's extremely hard. But, I mean, He's wanting us to do that. He's got this.
And like you said, with every part of your life, it's sometimes we get, I don't know, how we trick ourselves into thinking that maybe there's like a spiritual side of life and then there's like the real part of life. But God cares about what's bothering you on Tuesday just as much as He cares about what you're struggling with on Sunday. He cares about if you have a great day at work, He's happy for you. If you have a bad day at work, He understands. I mean, he was human. That the God of the universe came down and was a guy, was human so that He could relate to us, that He could understand what we're going through, that He understands hardships, He understands hurt, He knows what it's like to be human, and He wants to be there to love on us, to relate to us, and to give us a hope in the future.
So even though it may be one of the hardest things to do, to give control to Him, it'll be one of the best things you do.